Good evening, Facebook Live and YouTube streaming, and welcome to Wine Cellars Wine Wednesday. My name is Lee Schlesinger, and I'm coming at you live from Chicago. I am the Vice President in charge of education and portfolio management here at Wine Cellars, and we've had a nice weekly series twice a week, a series of tastings, virtual tastings with our great suppliers. Today, I'm feeling super summery because today is focus on Vinho Verde. And if you haven't had Vinho Verde, it's the ultimate summertime quaffing wine. Low alcohol, light, spritzy, just really fun and super affordable. Sub $10 are the wines that we're going to be tasting today. So our producer is Faisao, and Faisao is a producer that is located in the Vinho Verde region, which is northwestern Portugal, right at the corner of Spain along the Atlantic coastline. And that Atlantic influence is really defining what these wines are and why they're light, generally white, spritzy, low alcohol, and refreshing. So representing Faisao, we have Gilmer, and Gilmer will be joining us here from the East Coast. She is the North American sales manager for as the export manager for Faisao. And let's say hi to her from her home, her parents' home, should I say, in Virginia. Welcome, Gilmer. How are you today?
Hi, Lee. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to speak to everyone about Faisao and Portuguese wines.
Well, before we get to the wines, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the wine industry, and then we'll move on to some Portugal and then talk about the Faisao wines and taste.
All right, perfect. So I guess I have a story that bounces me around the world. I started in the wine industry learning about wines through my study abroad in Argentina, where I spent the year studying Spanish, art history, and I lived with a family that was in the wine industry that had a lot of connections, and their son worked in the wine industry, so I learned from them. And I was also in Mendoza during the harvest season, so I was able to learn about wine and the culture and really introduced me to the wine world there by living in Argentina. And then Portugal, I was introduced to Portugal through a study abroad. I spent the summer living in Coimbra to learn Portuguese. And there I also learned about Portuguese wine, Portuguese culture. And so I figured it would be something that I would be really interested in learning more. So I started the production route. I was working as assistant winemaker at a winery here in Virginia at the Williamsburg Winery, where I was the assistant winemaker along with another assistant who was the assistant and chemist and the head winemaker. And the three of us made all the wine, from out with the teams picking the grapes to the fermentations to rolling around barrels, cleaning insides of tanks, making a big mess and cleaning it up. So that's where I got my knowledge of how to make wine, more about the chemistry side of the wine, and then a little bit of the marketing as well. I worked on making the tasting notes and helped out in the tasting room when I could, when there was time. So I learned more through the hands-on method of wine. And then I went back to Portugal to do my MBA, December 2017. And so I've been living in Portugal ever since. And I started with Port in this last summer. And so this is almost a year with me working at Enoport, and I've been working with exportation with North America. So bringing the Portuguese wines to the US and Canada and Mexico. And it's been nice to be able to be an American representative in the American market, more than being a Portuguese person selling Portuguese wine. It gives you a different point of view, because obviously the Portuguese are going to say this is the best. We have the best sun, we have the best surf, we have the best food and wine. So it gives it a just different reality if you hear it from an American saying, wow, this really is the best. This is the best sun, fish, surf. So it gives another idea, another reality to the wine industry in Portugal.
Well, this Atlantic coastline that we're talking about certainly has all the above. It has great surf, and it has great food, and it has great wine and great people too. So you're lucky. Let's move to Portugal. And before we actually get to Portugal, I think there are some photos here that we'll show of you in your production method here.
Yes. It was pretty much making a mess and cleaning it up every day. So inside the tank, squishing the grapes with the feet. And this is after the press that we had to shovel all the grape pits and skins and put them off, drive the tractor out to the fields and put it down for fertilization.
And this is here in the U.S. or this is?
This is here in the U.S. at the Williamsburg Winery. So it's a large winery for Virginia. Not many people know wines from Virginia. So in the world size, it's a pretty small winery, but it's a nice place to learn.
All right. Well, let's go back to Portugal. And here's a map of Portugal, and I think the graphic there is pretty telling that there's a lot of different colors, which are different regions. But I think that thing up there in the top left is really kind of telling that maybe it's a little hurdle for us to get over with 250 indigenous grape varieties in Portugal. Makes it a little difficult for Americans who are so varietal and grape variety focused to understand the wines. But realistically, I think it's easier to understand regions and typicity of regions. So I'll let you take it over from here.
Yes. Well, this shows a lot. Portugal is a small country. It's about the size of Maine. So 6.5 hours, you can go from north to south. 2.5 hours, you can go across. And the size of Maine in the area, not the shape. So what happens here is you go a half an hour and the climate will completely change, the food will completely change, the people will completely change. Where in other countries, as in the US, you go a half an hour and you're still stuck in traffic in the same neighborhood. So,
yeah, that's amazing. There, just a quick statistic that Portugal's around 10 or 11 or 12th largest producer of wine, and it's the size of Maine. So you got to think that there's a lot of wine being made all over that country. So every square inch somewhere has grapevines on it, huh?
Yes. So there's 14 different wine regions, and they've counted 250 grape varieties at least. They say that they could be up to 500 grape varieties. So these are just ones that have been counted that they've had access to. But the issue is with this is that some of the names are also the same grape. You have two different names for the same grape, depending on which region it is. And others are grown in field blends. They rip out a grapevine when it dies, and then you put in another one, and then you forget which one was this, which grape was here. So like the US, people are more focused on single varietals, as you had said. It's common to see a Merlot, a Cabernet. In Portugal, you'll see mostly blends of grapes, which is nice because each of the grape varieties brings a different characteristic to the wine. So you can use the strengths of all the different grapes and make an amazing wine in its blend.
That's absolutely the case of blending, and we've talked about blending in the past. So we'll take a look at we're going to take a look at the grape variety specific to the region. But I think here on this map, it's important to see Portugal in the context. So we're going to be up in that Vinho Verde, that light green upper left corner, which is actually along the Atlantic coastline and border the Minho River on the top portion of it that borders from Spain. So it's that top northwest corner. We'll take a look at a map again. Let's talk about the name Faisao and how that came about, the brand name for the wines.
So the Portuguese in the Middle Ages were the map makers, the sailors of the world. And they sailed through the coast of Africa, around Africa, all the way up to Asia and India. And they brought back things that they thought were exciting. This was Middle Ages, so they brought back spices, places that were never before discovered by Europeans. And so they brought back spices, they brought back food, they brought back art, pottery, animals, things that they found interesting that you couldn't find. And one of the things that they brought back was the pheasant. So our brand Faisao is named after the pheasants that they brought back. And it shows a little bit the exotic, the colorful, the young, the vibrant. And our brand name really goes after that. It's a young, fresh, vibrant type of wine. And Vinho Verde is a different type of wine. It's not the white wine that you're used to. It's slightly spritzy. It's fresh. It's citric. It has the influences from the Atlantic coast. So it's a completely different wine and a unique wine. So the explorers brought back unique things, and we are giving unique things to the world through our brand Faisao. And what this brand has a long history in Portugal. It's from 1946. So we have different varieties, and in the U.S. we focus on the Vinho Verde with the red, with the rosé and the white, and then our red is from the Douro region. But in other styles we have internationally. It just depends on the market and what the clients are used to drinking and what would have the most success. But this is our version of the exotic Faisao to the world.
That's cool. That's a great explanation of Faisao, the pheasant, and I think we're getting pretty close to tasting some wine. So, why don't we pour ourselves a little bit of the white, and while we're tasting the white, maybe we can talk about the region, and we'll show some pictures of what the region looks like, and then we'll talk about the grape varieties that go into it, and then what that profile is as we taste.
Okay, great. So I pre-poured my wine, so I'm ready to go. So I'll speak while you guys taste.
Yeah.
But Faisao in the Vinho Verde region is, as we said, up in the northwest corner. It's called Entre Douro e Minho. So the rivers Douro and Minho at the north. So as you can see, yes, it's the region between the two rivers there on the west coast of Portugal. And this region is known for being green, lush green foresty, river valleys, a little bit of mountains to the east. And the thing about Vinho Verde region, there's so many different ways reasons people have attributed to how it got its name. Some will say that it's because verde, it's green. As you can tell, it's very green. There's a lot of rainfall. You can compare it to the Pacific Northwest. A little bit cooler, lots of rainfall, rolling hills. And so it's a region that has a lot of green, Vinho Verde, green wine. So that's one reason. Another reason is because in Portuguese, you would say fruits that are not quite ready to eat are green, like a green banana and a mature banana. So they would use the word green to describe the fruit because it was picked early, it was picked before it was ripe, it wasn't quite there, the acidity levels are high. So the reason why they would call it green wine, because it's a young wine, it's meant to be drunk young, fresh, within 2 years of bottling. And then another reason, they come up with a lot of stories that you can find, is in the 17th and 18th centuries, their population was growing in Portugal, and they started bringing over crops. So corn was one of them, that they used all of the fields to grow corn, and the grapes were pushed out to the side. And these grapes, when the vines grew up high and to the trees, and so they picked the grapes when they were still green and young and high acidic wines, and they were pretty much growing wine in bulk. It was the 1800s. There were no big reasons to grow fancy wines. They were growing it for bulk. They were growing it to drink. There were no styles. It wasn't being savored. It was more just to drink. So
it was a commodity. It was part of the lifestyle.
Exactly. It was a lifestyle. And their population was growing, so they had to produce more wine. But the issue is the region and the estates are all small. There were, in the 1980s, there were about 72,000 grape producers. And now there's only 19,000. So you can see there's so many producers in a land that grows not that much. About 9% of the total grapes come from the Vinho Verde region. So it's a small region, a lot of producers. So the quality wasn't known for being the highest in the world. It was a commodity.
And I would think that with that many producers, a lot of people were producing for themselves and for their neighbors, very small production levels. And so, it kind of probably drunk a lot locally as a result of the structure there. And
exactly. And that's one thing as my job as export manager is to not only work for Faisao as a company, but also promote Portuguese wines, Portugal in general, because Portugal is a small country. If everybody works by themselves, if they all work to promote one little plot of land, just like the farmers were growing just for themselves, it's not going to get the fame and the recognition like the Champagne region or Napa Valley. If everybody works together and promotes the regions, and everybody learns more that Vinho Verde is not just a white wine, it's a rosé or a red or a sparkling wine, people learn about it more, and the region as a whole gets a lot better and more productive.
You're not just a wine ambassador, you're a cultural ambassador.
Exactly. That's why I love doing this, because it's nice to blend in history, culture, as well with wine, bring all the passions together.
Well, let's talk about the white here for a second.
Yes.
And it's funny, we were talking about green wine and why it may be called Vinho Verde, and kind of I think the agreed upon is because it's meant to be drunk young,
Yeah.
early. So, but the wine, because it is so young, actually has a little green tint to it.
Yes, you can see it's like a very light, clear, a little bit of a lemon lime color, kind of a light straw color as well. And when you look at it, you can see a couple of bubbles coming up. It's not like a champagne. A champagne or a prosecco will have about 6 bar of carbonation. This only has 1, so it's a slightly spritzy wine. And if you smell it, it's very fresh. It's fruity. You'll get the citrus, the tropical fruits on the nose. And then when you drink it as well, it's a sweeter wine. It's 10 grams per liter, but you won't notice the sweetness of the wine. It comes off very dry because of its high acidity.
And a little bit of that carbonic prickle, which will dry out the wine too.
Exactly. So it's a completely different flavor than you're used to.
Yeah, for me, some floral notes in there as well. And that medium minus type of body is actually helped by a little bit of the carbonation, which gives it more texture,
Yeah.
but dangerous. Could probably quaff this thing very easily, very quickly on a warm summer day. So that was why I started this by saying great summery thing,
Yes.
great for picnic patio, a wine you could probably drink a bottle of or share a bottle of on a warm summer day without falling over.
Absolutely. And these are young, low alcohol wines. This isn't 10% alcohol wine. So it's lighter, it's fresher, it's easier to drink. And it's perfect because in Portugal, it's common to have a glass of wine at lunch. It's after work, everybody meets up for a glass of wine or a beer or drink outside, because with 300 or more days of sun a year with very nice weather all year round, you want to be outside and you want to celebrate it. So lots of picnics with Vinho Verde. People have it just for lunch and the outside with seafood. So it's really nice fresh wine for the middle of the day. So it's perfect when you have 10% alcohol. You can go back to work and be productive instead of thinking, oh no, got to go back to work after having wine. This is perfect because you can really enjoy the time with your family, with your friends, and be productive. And it's great. You can take it outside. It's perfect for a day at the beach, by the lake, river, watching a soccer match outside.
And screw caps, so perfect for that kind of thing. So I think we're going to have a lot of occasions this summer to be dining outside and to be outside on our porches and patios. So, and at $8 or $10, under $10 for sure, a bottle, certainly a value proposition. So you can enjoy a bottle without worrying about or not sharing it with other people.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's that good. I don't know if you want to share.
All right, so let's take a look at the varieties that go in here, maybe touch on some of those indigenous varieties and see what else we have we want to talk about. We'll also talk about food pairings. There are a couple slides that are coming up here to talk about food, which is certainly where we're headed towards. So let's take a look at some of these cool images again. And I think to point out here for people, hopefully people will ask some questions along the way, but we'll point out some things that we think we want them to see, like the higher trellising here. Because of that amount of moisture and the amount of rainfall you get, you actually lift the vines up higher off the ground in order to help the humidity levels, help that condensation and the water help dry out those vines. And that's something unique to cooler areas, especially on the Atlantic, like Rías Baixas in Spain, or here in Vinho Verde, and also up in Galicia.
Yes, it's really nice because the higher vines, the airflow goes through, so you don't have to worry as much about the rot and the mold coming from all of the rain that goes through. But the rain is concentrated in the winter and the spring, so then it dries out. You have the cooler days, a little bit of the Atlantic goes through. You get the Atlantic influences because you're right on the water. These are off the water. This is in Amarante. The Vinho Verde region is broken up into different regions, mini regions, and each of them have their own microclimates. So this one, yes, you can see on the right side. Exactly.
Excellent. Let's take a look at some grape varieties that are going in here. The typical grape varieties that we'll be using here on the Vinho Verde White. Very typical for the region are Arinto, Loureiro, and Trajadura, which is AKA Trexadura, one of those grape varieties that has a pseudonym in other places, like in Spain.
Yes. So Arinto is one of those grapes that you can find all over all over the country, but in different styles. You'll see it in Vinho Verde region. You'll see it in the Lisbon region, Tejo region. So it's a very versatile grape with high acidity, and that helps it as well in the hot regions, the hot climates. So it's able to adapt in different areas that you have it in. And this will bring in more of the citrus fruit type of taste and smell to the wine. And then Luero is another popular grape up in Vinho Verde region. And you'll get more of some peachy notes, some melon notes coming from here. And Trajadora is also another common one. And all of these mixed together, you'll get tropical fruits, peach, pear, melon, some stone fruits like cherry. So it's a really nice combination to have the three of them together. But Vinho Verde is very versatile. You can have one grape, a single varietal Vinho Verde. You can have multi-varietals. You can also age some of it. So within the region, they're doing a lot of different styles. But this right here is the classic version that goes to the export markets. You'll see plenty of styles like this with a little bit of gas, a higher acidity, a lower alcohol content. So you get a little bit of everything, a nice mix.
Well, I think that brings us into the rosé.
Yes.
So let's talk about the some of the typical red varieties here that make up the Vinho Verde rosé from Faisao.
Perfect. So in Vinho Verde rosé, you've got Espadero, Boraçao, and Padeiro. Those are three of the main grapes that are grown and the ones that we use to make our rosés. And so this has a little bit higher of an alcohol content at 10.5%, but still not like the typical Portuguese that you'll find 13, 14%. So it's a nice low alcohol wine. This one has a higher sugar level, but it tastes completely as a dry wine because it has the high acidity. So you smell it and you get lots of fresh strawberries. That's my main takeaway from this wine is just nice, fresh strawberries. It's very easy to drink, and the color is a beautiful, kind of has a little bit of a melon color into the light pink going through. And so it's a nice light color, beautiful wine, and it just very fresh and strawberry and other red fruits that you can find.
Yeah, and as you say, that it's perceivably dry. If anything, a little added sugar here just gives the wine a little bit more weight.
Yes.
As well as maybe accents that strawberry, that little wild berry fruit that you get from the rosé profile.
Exactly. And wines, if you are a fan of other rosés, this is a good one to try. If you are new to wine drinking, that's what Vinho Verde is really good for. I have friends that they have tried a couple wines here and there. They try the really sweet, the Pinot Grigios. They've tried Albarino. They've had some Proseccos, and this is kind of an introduction to a different style of wine, but an introduction to Portuguese wines as well, because it is the lighter, easier to drink. So it's for the beginner wine drinker all the way to the person that appreciates wine more.
Yeah, I can see how this wine might have training wheels for somebody who wasn't terribly wild about wine.
Exactly. And so it's a good place to start because there's so many things that Portugal has to offer. And so if you try Vinho Verde, maybe the next time you'll try one from the Tejo region or from the Dow region. So it's a good first step into Portugal.
And super versatile, as we said. We've got some nice images here of what you'd pair with it.
Yes. So this has been one of the fun projects that I've had since I've been back in the US. I've been playing around with different pairings because you think you usually have the wines from the country, in the country, with things that are more popular. So say you'll be in Portugal, you have Vinho Verde, and you'll have octopus. And I don't know if you've ever tried to find grilled or octopus here in the US, but it's pretty difficult. So I've been coming up with ways that you can bring more American flares to a Portuguese wines and blending the two cultures. And one of the best combinations I've come up with is fried chicken in the Vinho Verde, either the white or the rosé. And it's really nice because the acid really cuts through the fat in the fried food. And so perfect pair. It's something that you can have cold fried chicken or warm fried chicken with this, and it goes amazingly well.
All right, I'm coming to Virginia for a picnic next.
Yes, but other things that are simple as well. I know in the picture, it's harder to see, but pimento cheese is very nice with it. Chicken salad, I had hummus and carrots, a small salad, and even things that are spicier, some Asian foods. On the far right is a Vietnamese spring roll with sriracha. So it's just fun to be able to play with the different styles of wines and the different flavors from all over the world. But
Yeah,
in Portugal, you'll see this more as an appetizer type of wine, aperitif, so something before you'll have your meal, but then you can also have it out in the streets. I know later there'll be some pictures of Portugal and people out in the streets having their Vinho Verde with the sardines. Yes, here at the kiosks. And then these, so it's a wine that's meant to have outside with in the company of family, friends, passing either the afternoon, the evening. And in Portugal, it's very common to have Vinho Verde with the parties in June, which won't be happening this year, but every June they have the Saints parties. And my first time to Portugal, I actually had no idea what was going on. I was with my parents and we were traveling around from city to city. We got to our first city and there was a nice sardine party. People were outside dancing, concerts and music going on. Oh, this is nice, a party. Then we go to the next city and they were doing it again. So everywhere we hit with a different party, celebrating different saints festivals. So we timed it perfectly. But it makes sense. You have the salty, the fatty sardines with these wines, and it pairs perfectly. And it also goes well when you're outside and having a good time.
I totally buy that. And when we get good weather here in Chicago, I'm there mentally, but when we get good warm weather here in Chicago, it's going to be one of our house wines for our patio for sure.
Yes, it's perfect. And it's something that you can bring over to a friend's house and know that they will enjoy it too. You don't have to take the big risk of saying, oh, maybe they don't like reds, they only drink whites. It's one of those wines that you can have anytime, anywhere.
All right, let's move on to the red, and we're going to take a step out of the region. We'll flash back to the kind of that larger map of Portugal, I think, just so we can talk about. But there is such a thing as red Vinho Verde. I had it when I was there. I know it exists, but it's pretty rare. So we decided, so you guys decided that you wanted to make a red wine in the range, but maybe not from Vinho Verde. Maybe let's talk about why we decided to move to a different region. And in this case, we moved inland to the Douro, a warmer climate for our red wine.
Yes. So the main thing about red Vinho Verdes, they're very acidic, and it's a very surprisingly shocking taste for an American consumer. You're not used to having a red wine with a little bit of fizz. People wouldn't know how to handle it. So it's one of those things, we want to have a red, a white, a rosé, and have a line that goes together, things that work well together, blend together, but also is perfect for the audience. And so the Douro wines, most Americans know port, they know Madeira wine, and they know Vinho Verde. Now they're learning a little bit about wines from Lisbon, Dow, Tejo, Alentejo. So the knowledge is growing. But I think the Douro was the best option because people already know it. It's a familiar taste. It's a stronger wine than the others, so a different profile, but it's the same type of occasion that you're going to have this for. It's an unoaked wine that we are using that you're about to taste. So it's it's a beginning wine. It's a fruitier wine. So it's something that's more for the beginner wine drinker. It's a screw top bottle. So it's something to as well as ease you into Portuguese wines, but really keeping the Portuguese characteristics, because the Douro produces great ports, great still wines. So it's nice to be able to share the characteristics of a different region all in the same line. And if you like the white, you like the rosé, people will try the red and say, oh, okay, this is very nice. It goes well, but it's also an easier drinking. It's reaching the same target market as well.
Yeah, and let's talk about that profile. For me, these wines, we did a Quinta de la Rosa, our Douro producer, our estate Douro producer. So hopefully some people that are watching are familiar with the wines from the region. We'll talk about the varieties here in a minute, but typically that I get out of those wines, the dry table wines, is this black cherry, that core of black cherry. And here we're black cherry and maybe very dark berry fruit profile. softer tannins, a riper style, maybe medium, just maybe below medium acidity, but a very easy drinking profile at 13% alcohol, not even very, very, very large, very full. I think you could even probably chill this wine down a little bit and enjoy it outside with some barbecue. So you've got pretty much everything for outdoor dining covered with these three wines.
Absolutely, and that's the goal of the range of the Faisal wines, is to be that celebratory wine, something fun, youthful, a little bit exotic, but also not so much of a risk to take. So it's a good introductory wine that's definitely a crowd pleaser.
So let's take a look at a couple images of the Douro.
Yes.
It's named after the Douro River, and it's moves inland towards Spain. So it's really more continental Spain than coastal Portugal in terms of climate for us. This is about as lush as I've ever seen the Douro Valley. Normally it looks pretty brown, except for the vines. That's a more typical version for me there.
Yes, and it's just, these views are just so extravagant. You think you're in another world. It really, you look down and you're so small. These are higher mountains and everything is terraced up. The vines go through. I can't imagine picking the grapes in this region. You definitely have a good workout by the end of the day. But it's a beautiful region. It takes your breath away, and it's gorgeous. The color of the water, it's named the Douro River because Douro, it has the word oro in it, which is gold. So when the light hits it perfectly, it kind of shines golden. And so you can see from these pictures that it's just a magical area.
Yeah, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, in fact.
Yes, yes. And it was also the first officially demarcated region in the 1700s. I think 1756 was when it was demarcated. So it's got a lot of history.
Yeah, and the typical grape varieties, there's a lot of them, but these are really the three primary, at least that I'm most familiar with. And they're the typical grape varieties that would go into making port as well as dry table wine, which is the Touriga Nacional, which we talked about in depth kind of last time we were talking about Portugal, or the Douro. Mm-hmm. And that for me is kind of the Cabernet Sauvignon, or the most noble grape. But here you're also adding Tinto Roriz, which is Tempranillo, and Touriga Franca. In the Touriga Franca, maybe brings some fresher aromatics, maybe a little lighter profile. The Tinto Roriz may bring some acidity and structure back into it, as well as some red fruit profile. So each wine, again here, the blending, each grape complements each other so that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Exactly. And that's the best part of wine blends, is that the Portuguese have turned winemaking into an art. You're taking the best of each grape and you're playing on its strengths to become the best wine possible. So it's really nice to see how they're acting as artists in this whole process.
The art of blending. So let's see what we do with the art of pairing. And
so these are some more things that I've tried. And I also went a little bit out of the American style, tried a chimichurri sauce.
Yeah, your Argentina's creeping in, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So it's nice. It's fresh. You have the fresh flavors and spices with the grilled meat. And then we had lamb burgers. And the lamb does exceptionally well with the Faisal because it brings out a little bit of the spiciness, some of the leatheriness from the Touriga Nacional, and it really accentuates it. And it's perfect just to have the blends of the two. The smokiness flavor from the lamb hits the spiciness of the wine, and it's the perfect marriage between the two.
Yeah, and I would think that fresh fruit profile against some of the gaminess of the lamb would work well too. And the wine is actually, the red here, the Douro red, is really quite floral too. It has these lovely violet aromas, which might play with the chimichurri there too.
Yeah.
So you've got some fun aromatic profile things going on too.
Exactly. And it's nice because Portuguese wines aren't as well known as Spanish wines, but the region is very similar from the Douro River, from the Spanish side and the Portuguese side. And the grapes some are the same. So as you said, the Tempranillo and the Tinto Roriz. So it's nice to see, if you like Tempranillo, you can give it a try and say, oh, really? I had no idea, and learn something new about another country and a region just by drinking the same grapes.
Very good. Let's go back and see if there are some people that are chiming in and say hi to some friends. We've got some people. We've got some people that want to say hi. Jordan Sager waves hi to you.
Hello.
And Christina out in the West Coast saying hi. And I think you know this guy.
Yes.
He was a fellow Faisao employee.
Yes, and Miguel in Brazil right now watching us live.
In Brazil, and we've got some Portuguese fans here with us here. So I want to thank you for having some time together today. Was there anything that we might have missed that you want to add about Faisao or Portugal as a cultural ambassador with a foot in both countries?
Yes, well, I think the main thing with pairings, people always ask me, what do you try pairing with this? What type of wine goes with this? And what I've learned through just winemaking experiences, and just my host family taught me the most about learning about pairings and wine, was about you pair wine also not only with the food, but also with the moment that you're drinking it. So you want to bring a wine that also brings a little bit of fun, teaches somebody else. It's not just about having another drink at the table. It's about another conversation piece. And you really remember the times that you had spending with your family and your friends. And so this is kind of nice to be able, when we are in the time where we're not able to be with family and friends face to face, it's nice to have options and bring these wines and think about the times that we did have, and you'll be able to appreciate a little bit more when everything calms down a little bit. But it's mostly just having these wines with family, friends, having those nice outdoor experiences. People say, oh, you can only have red wine with meat, white wine with fish. And I think it's more just about what you prefer drinking, what you like drinking, because you can be at a dinner party and somebody's having a steak and somebody's having fish, and you're both having a rosé, you're both having white. And it's more about the feelings behind the wine than the perfect pairing.
Yeah, I think wine for me is certainly emotional and transportive. I like the ability for it to bring me to Portugal and make me feel like I'm at one of those outdoor parties and enjoying sardines and celebrating with friends on the street. So for me, I taste the wines and I think about those times, I associate them and think about how these flavors got in the glass from the terroir. So it's a mental, fun, emotional exercise here for us to feel connected to another place or maybe another time.
Exactly. And it's a nice vacation to take from your own living room.
That's right. So I think that, again, these wines are perfect for summer. I'm looking forward to when that actually hits for us in Chicago. You in Virginia might have a little better weather and more opportunity to enjoy these outside. We're going to see some 80-degree temperatures here in Chicago this weekend over Memorial Day. So we'll definitely be outside with some Faisao.
Yes, no, these are perfect Memorial Day wines to bring out with the barbecue. Red, white, rosé, you have something for everyone.
Well, again, I want to thank you for being with us, Gilmer, and thanks to our viewers out there watching. Of course, this will be recorded and kept up on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube site. I just want to let people know that are watching here, we'll be back again on Saturday, staying in the Iberian Peninsula, and we'll be tasting some cava from the Penedès out by Barcelona. Cava is Spanish sparkling wine, so see us at 3 p.m. on Saturday for some of those wines. And in the meantime, enjoy some rooftop outdoor dining with Faisao and Gilmer. I look forward to that picnic with the fried chicken and some Vinho Verde rosé.
Absolutely. Next time we're together, I'll bring the fried chicken.
It's a deal. I look forward to it. Thank you again for joining us, everybody out there.
Thank you.